Ya'at'e, hello. Welcome to Real Native Roots, Untold Stories, a podcast by a Native woman with deep roots, hosted by yours truly, Vicky Katsuli Boy Oldman. I am a lover of stories, a connector, and a holder of wisdom keepers. Each month, we will be connecting with our Native relatives and exploring what medicine our guests share and offer to us. Please join me on this uncharted journey to learn, connect, and reflect. Ahé'hee. Thank you. Ya'at'e, hello everyone. It is so good to be back, and I hope you are taking care of yourselves. I hope you're taking care of your relatives, your fur babies, plants, and animals. So much that needs connection and just to also be seen and heard. It's a beautiful day. Every day I wake up, it's just a reminder of this gift of life. Recently, my dad came down to see me. He was worried about me because I wasn't doing well. I was sick a couple of days ago. And he drove all this way, 4 hours to come see me and just eat and check on me. And then he burned cedar and prayed. And I tell you, it really made my heart. I started to cry because I thought to myself, Vicky, you're not going to always have that where Papa comes and he hugs you and he prays for you. And then he was one of those like hard love school. You've not been cedering. You have not been, doing your medicine. I don't know how these elders, they just know. But he knew. And I was honest. I'm like, yeah, Dad, I've been a little slacking. He's like, you better get back to it. And I'm like, all right, Papa. It's just a reminder of how much our relatives, we take them for granted and we forget how much medicine is around us and we don't use it when we need to. Even if things are good, we should still give thanks for that. So
Right.
that's my recent learning, people. I tell you always what I'm learning and what I'm learning about myself. And I'm going to get to business. I found a poem already, and it's from my favorite author. Those of you who are new, I always read a poem before we get started. And I like to have our guests hear the poem so they can tell us what they think of the poem. The poet or the writer is an Indigenous author called Richard Wagamese.
Oh, I
And
know Richard.
ah, you know
I knew
Richard?
him. He passed away. He was a wonderful
Yes.
guy.
Oh,
He could adapt his books into movies.
I love him. We got to talk about him. Let me read
Yeah.
the poem. It's coming from What Comes from Spirit. And I'm going to read this. So here it goes. Spirituality isn't simply spectacular, it's spectacularly simple. It means whatever moves your spirit, not your mind, your spirit. Your mind is not the seat of you. Your soul is, your spirit. Finding, approaching, and engaging with whatever moves your spirit is being spiritual. Music, books, film, art, theater, dance, a bird skimming a straight line through the air, a sunrise, a breeze, the smell of air, a quiet conversation, a hug. It's spectacularly simple. If it moves your spirit, it moves you closer to your true, essential self, and so closer to Creator. Mm, so beautiful.
Golf clap.
Mm, beautiful. He's just an amazing author. And so our guest, I have to tell you, I was really surprised. I was like, it's a long shot. I'm just going to send it and see what happens. I sent an email and like within 10 minutes, I got a yes. And I couldn't believe it. I actually screamed. So I have with us a special relative with us today, and he is an artist in many ways, a musician, a writer, a photographer, storyteller, actor, producer, dreamer. He's all those things in one. And what I learned that he's always wanted to make some kind of change on this plane. He thought maybe a social worker, a police officer. He just wanted to help us, our people. And he found his way. He found what that was. And he's done his share of contribution, still doing his contribution. And he's an avid reader as well, aware of what's happening politically with our communities. What I've heard so far is right now he's a seeker of joy and peace during the winter seasons of his life. Who do we have? We have the one and only Gary Farmer with us. Welcome. Please bring your voice in already again and again.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. That's a beautiful introduction. Most people don't do that kind of research, so thank you, thank you, thank you, Miigwech. Yate, yate. Everybody bad Navajo accent. Oh, man.
That was really good, actually. Thank you again for coming on. How are you today?
I couldn't have been better. You know, I've been without a car for about 9 months, and I'm used to going everywhere in my little car, and I got a really old one. And I came home and to my res because I needed to be with my people, my family, which left of them, because I'm pretty old and you just watch everybody go. And then you got the young ones, but they come on another plane and I catch up to them. I'm really proud of my nephews and my niece and my sister, Michelle, who's
Mhm.
been in the business, so to speak, as long as I have. We're celebrating both 50 years. Her teaching tap, jazz, ballet, modern dance, hip hop. She has acting um, classes. My niece teaches that because she was in the movies and she's younger. And I'll probably do some acting classes for her with the young
Sweet.
people. Although I'm so crazy, what's wrong with this guy? We put some good attention, crazy in a fun way, I guess. I'm just thankful for every day now. I'm 71. Not that I want to brag about that, but you count every moment now, and I can't wait to get back to work. And I've got a great series going called Resident Alien,
Mm,
which is probably one of the best shows outside of Reservation Dogs I've ever done. And that's hard to measure, stuff like that. I don't like to compare one against the other, but
mm.
this show's special. It's on USA Network coming now. It's been on Sci-Fi Channel for 3 years, and I moved to Peacock. If you want to watch, there's 3 seasons already done. We're going back for the fourth season, so I couldn't be happier right now.
Aw, I appreciate that. I appreciate you talking about your relatives. Before we talk about relatives, I have to go back and talk about Richard. You know Richard. So,
Well, yeah, I met him once, read his books early on. I probably met him more than once because we used to have writing workshops and everybody wants to adapt his work. I think there has been one adaptation of his work, actually. I think a dear friend of mine did it. I'm more forgetful now. I just got heard from Tasba. Do you think I could think of her first name? She's a bit different from her mom and her dad. I know they're Indigenous, but she's one of the writers
mhm.
on Res Dogs and also one of the directors. And it was so fun to do that show. I'm drifting, but we've never had that. I've never had that where everybody on the high end, like the writers, the producers, the directors, all came from our own people. Where I'm from, Six Nations, is up like we owned a lot of territory in the day, right? But we got
Mhm.
17 communities in North America, not in Mexico, but close. So, taking that trail, because I always drove home through Tulsa, Oklahoma City, and Tulsa, and we shot most of Res Dogs like hour south of Tulsa, except locations here all over Tulsa, and not much in the city, but on the outskirts, like we found that bar where I knocked everybody out. That's going west toward, Memphis. It's a long way from there, but I love Memphis just for the music. Anyway, Res Dogs was special. And I could hear all the writers and the producers, like most of the writers would come to set, which is very unusual. And there'd be a team of people working on the direction, even though one person's directing, they shared all of it. And so when we as a scene, especially my Uncle Brownie scenes because they were so funny and crazy. You'd take a take and you could just hear all the writers laughing. You could hear Richard laughing. Richard Martin's, he was with us, even though he's passed quite a few years ago. He was a really special writer. So he would have loved this. He would have been there with us if he was alive, but he's still alive. We all
Yeah.
are, no matter what.
Yeah. I believe that, and I appreciate all his writings. He's such a beautiful writer, and I am just so happy to see so many uh, writers, actors, musicians. Like the entertainment has just blown up in ways. And I remember one of your interviews you were talking about early on. You had more white writers, and now it's shifted so much the industry, and I'm sure it's.
Shifted for us, though, several years ago
Mhm,
with the likes of a playwright named Thompson Highway and Drew Taylor and a number of Beatrice Monsier. And there's so many writers. I remember when I first started studying the theater and, which was in my 20s, 21, 20. And if you think about it, our ceremonies,
mhm,
all of our ceremonies are theatrical. And the Greeks are credited with discovering theater. But my culture 12,000 years ago formed the first piece. We're known as the people of government. And if you
mhm,
look at the situation in the United States, Ben Franklin was in the room writing the Constitution. And who was in the next lodge next to him or behind him? Our people, because we were the people of government. And so he knew what to take from us. We had 50 chiefs selected by 50 clan mothers. But who selects the president, really? We elect the popular vote. But a person can lose the popular vote and still become president. You know why? Because of this thing called the Electoral College.
mhm.
Now, for us, if that was women, that's who would, the women selected one leader, and there was 50 leaders, which is like the Senate, if you think about it. They took a lot from our culture. And we all had visions,
Mhm.
all of us had visions of the coming. We knew they were going to come with the cross, right? Well, you can make a cross for like the straight up and down, hold your crucifix kind of cross. And then they just forgot the circle around it. If they put the circle around it, so we knew these people coming were so close. Ben Franklin was so close to getting it right. And then you think, who did President elect Trump beat? He beat Hillary Clinton, and he beat a woman of color, Kamala. He beat women.
Yeah.
And if the Electoral College was women, like it should be, who would be
Yeah.
president? But 4 years, I heard they were putting fake news on for me, thinking I could tell it wasn't Trump's voice. I could tell what they were saying wasn't Trump's campaign. And listen to this. You know how much it cost to finish that wall? Billions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What does it cost to let indigenous people, it's mostly indigenous people from Central and South America, right? Mexico, give them a green card. They become taxable income. They go work the farm country. They'll form their own union. You can tax them. Then at least they're playing along. Then you can give
Mhm.
them hospitalization hospital care because you think they're not paying taxes. So I just think it's going to be a better world, even though Trump is going to do his things. It makes more sense to do that than to separate us like that because he's cutting our nations right in half, especially down in all of us, like you guys. So you guys were
Yeah. Oh, it's a
working
strategy,
around
right?
Hobie. And well, who caused that problem, right? Indian affairs caused a lot of issue between because you used to trade. You guys are herders and Hopi are farmers. So you traded the blue cord for a sheep or a lamb. And that was the way it was. But then the government got involved and didn't know kind of what they're doing. And they got us each other for no particular reason. Well, I think that's all past, but still the Black Mountain, what's it called, Black Mesa? Oh, that whole section. It's
Black Mesa.
Black
Yeah.
Mesa. We got a Black Mesa too in New Mexico, of course, over in, I can't think right now, but
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of that is it's very strategic. It's on purpose for
Divide and
division.
conquer. Say well,
Yeah.
move. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, yeah, it's very, yeah. We could probably spend the whole podcast talking about that,
Yeah,
and we're
we don't
not
want
though.
to.
What
We
I
don't want to
do want to
tell.
know, yeah, what I do want to know is I did do some digging, and I'm like, I know that your dad was an iron worker. I think you
No, he
even
was a
said
crane operator, hoisted
he was a
steel
crane
for the
operator.
iron workers. Yeah,
And I think
was
I read
beautiful at it.
something about like he even did a little bit of acting if I was,
My father?
or maybe
No,
your grandfather. I'm trying to remember
no,
what. See, I'm
no.
getting all my
Well,
dated.
you heard of that guy Tonto.
No.
He was a smith. His name was, it depends who you're colonized by. If you're colonized by the English, you got Smith, Johnson, you know. If you're colonized by the French, you got Lafayette, Corleone, or if you're colonized by the Spanish, you got Perez. That's how you can tell where they've been colonized by, right? Because there's only 3 points of invasion. Quebec City for the French, Jamestown for the English, Zuni, New Mexico for the Spanish conquistadors, right?
Yeah.
And when they got to the Zunis were growing 200 varieties of beans at the time. 200.
Amazing. Yeah.
And now they can't find a farm. Why? Because a certain church affiliation put a dam just to bring water.
Right.
And now it broke the whole Pueblo concept. And they started HUD housing, which they put them miles from the center where the ceremonies were held, where they replaced the house because they got the big giant puppets that come and anyway, that's another story, which
Yeah.
loved that story. All about
Well,
the big Zuni issue.
it is, right? And
And
I
that
mean, a
guy
lot of
wrote
that.
all over the rocks just above it. Which
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, a lot of that is it's cultural, right? It's history, which makes me wonder about your history. I'd love to hear about who your grandparents are and your parents. Can you tell us a little story about both of them?
first off, you have to get your Indian status card. Like we have rights from 1794. A guy named John Jay. One of the
Hmm.
best treaties we got is Canadians. Because if it wasn't for us, there would be no Canada. We were like the Viet Cong of,
Hmm.
1812 of 1796, right? So we were forced. We lived in the forest and we fought in like the jungles of the Viet Cong. That's why America couldn't. They were jungle warfare, right? And America was not used to jungle warfare. I mean, except they did a lot of. Anyway, my family, all four of my grandparents are from my community,
Hmm.
and all two of my mom and dad are from the same community, and all my grandparents, that would make it eight, are from my community. We used to be 100%, and then they reestablished the blood quantum thing because you have to be 50 plus to do the states thing, to move in there and live, retire, work, etc. And I came out 93.75. So I'm 6.25. And I used to have a little red in my beard when I could grow a beard. And I got, well, anyway, there'd be a little red there. My first cousins born had red hair, Big Dave and Jackie Red, we call them, because they had red, they were bright kind of red. And so I got 6.75%, and I know what it is. It's the Scottish Highlanders. They're a tribal.
Right.
The Vikings couldn't even beat these guys. They were the toughest guys. They were warriors, and I'm so proud of my slight Scottish heritage. And we were worker bees for the industrial nation. That's the easiest way to put it. My grandfather couldn't read or write, but he was a genius. He could fix a
Mm,
poster. He could fix anything mechanical you gave to. We used to move houses. Like
mm,
Indians would go buy a cheap house in Burlington, which is a long ways to the rest, like 30 miles. And we had to cross the bridges, and the hydro lines, the electric lines, had to come down so we could get the height of the house past. And that's what I grew up doing is,
mm,
well, when we were on the weekends, the parents, everybody worked in Niagara Falls, New York. We lived in a beautiful place. That's a sacred site for us, the Maid of the Mist. and all the stories about that. It was actually when we actually used to, much like the Mayan, the Aztecs, there was a time, a long time ago, of course, that we had human sacrifice.
Mhm.
And nobody likes to talk about it, but they'll say, Gary, that's not true. And I said, well, and I just learned that. And so my father, do you remember when they shut Niagara Falls down because they had to fix they shut the whole falls down and sent it over to the Canadian side, which there's Canadian falls. And you go to the U.S. side now, it looks like a bomb hit it. Like it looks like they're all just like it's the poorest place. Like just and then
Mm.
the casino, the Southern Casino lights up the whole wonderful way. Like they've done a beautiful job of their casinos right by the falls, right? So it's beautiful. And so they're the beautification. But we have an old turtle building there that we used to do the arts and theater in in the early 80s, late 70s. So we were always stateside because Canadians didn't, their dollar was never equal to ours in the US. I'd
Mm.
say ours because there is no border to us. There's a lot of border Indians, the Blackfoot Confederacy, all the British Columbia tribes and Washington, Saskatchewan goes right into the Dakota Territory, Alberta goes into, so the Nishnabes, the Chippewas, they all back and forth across the interface. And it goes on and on like that. And Ontario's huge, right? And so that's my mother, Shirley Garnet, farmer, Ronald Orville, farmer. My mother was a Fraser. That's where the Scots, Fraser is the classic Scots name. And
Ah.
her father was probably the Scots connection. My grandmother, and married to the Fraser, was Rita Joseph. And Joseph, my great grandfather, lived to be 109.
Wow.
Going to see him as a child, and he was somewhat witched by that age. That something was at the end of his bed. He would scream, and we'd try to hold him up and let him know everything's cool, just as a child. And the store, my parents, when they came home finally to the rest, we leased a store on our rest for $650 a month. And it was the oldest store in the community. And my great grandfather used to build caskets in the back room. We had a hard time keeping that up. I came back from Syracuse University, kind of disappointed at a top-notch university, and I couldn't get into the School of Communications where I knew I wanted to be. Well, I started off as a photographer, and then I learned that in high school, and I had a football scholarship, which I didn't want to do. Bucknell University, they don't play football no more, but offered a full scholarship to play football. But I knew I learned this playing it as a kid. I don't want to hurt anyone. And you got to like hurt somebody to be good. You got to be. I was in,
Mm.
I could be as fierce as a player, but I didn't want to hurt anybody. That wasn't my vibe. And my mother, you know what she taught me? She taught me compassion.
Aw.
She used to make a little native boy, Michael, he couldn't walk. He was like, like that. And he could talk kind of, but I had to walk him to school every day. It
Mm.
taught me so much about helping.
Mm.
Because we used to build houses together. All the family would gather and they'd build you a house. And that's all. And I don't blame unions. We need unions. I'm not talking about union builders, but our communities. We got struck. The only thing, Handsome Lake, which was like the second coming guy, you come in the 1800s. My other grandfather, I told you, he was a farmer. He's the farmer, so you take their name still, but he was on that. And of course, Indian affairs, when they line you up, they say, well, you got to go by your dad. Grandpa, you're going to go by your male, but we follow the women because they select the leadership. So I was actually a Cayuga Wolf Clan, and my grandfather, I don't think ever was to the Longhouse. It took him near the end of his life, and he just, wow, man. To take my grandpa farmer, who was just a mechanical genius, and I remember he knew the language because we start putting the bingo first in the numbers,
Oh,
and
cool.
he actually could play to the language. So he started playing bingo, and he'd have to go hide because there were my mother on my dad's side is a beautiful woman, but they became like ultimate Christians, were ones that stand up and scream and get really excited and stuff. And to sneak out to his little shack where he fixed everything. And he had to hide in a way and play reservation bingo so he could play with the language and he wasn't forced to kind of whatever, however,
Mhm.
that was so cute. That's why I took him to the longhouse because I said, "Oh, Grandpa knows, man. He's been there. He knows his language, but it was never spoken around." Do you know how uncles and my father would say, Onaga, Saguli, it's gonna go, which is in my language in Cayuga, you got me so confused. I know it really pretty good because I studied my language for 5 months, but I'm gonna pick it up more back at home now. Scanos, Waguego, Negaso, Trust. British we all wasn't it? Now, of course, quite diesel. Like you said, it was a beautiful day. It was kind of sunny, broke a little bit. So thank you for that sunshine creator. And I also say in our language, scano means, is there peace in your heart? Scano
That's beautiful.
fuego means, is there peace in all your hearts? When you open up a ceremony or just a powwow or a social where we're trying to heal the sick or we're defending our children rights with children's aid, any kind of fundraising, we all have a smaller opening address. And the big one that you hear in the longhouse is like, shit, it's like 45 minutes, an hour. And it's just the opening address. And then we go, one ceremony is 9 days long,
Wow.
oratory. And that's not written down. We don't use books. It's all up here in your mind or whatever you called it earlier in the prayer. Our spirit, our spirit can oratate in several languages. Tuscarora, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, Mohawk. Plus, there's like seven other, the Delawares, known as
Yeah.
another name I can't conjure right now. They say, oh, they came one night and stayed forever, right? Well, Delaware's the Shawnee. All those people down by Cincinnati, we found a burial site. It's at least 8,000, 9,000 years old. And it's all the people that got Cincinnati. It's just 20 miles from Cincinnati. And you think how they unearthed Olympia
Yeah.
or something, one of the Olympus, and
Mhm.
recreated what was going on there. And that's what we need to do or one of our old sites on that Mississippi River, for instance.
Mm.
And all that rivers and all those big rivers that we fought for just recently at when they tried to invade us in North Dakota, South Dakota. Would you call that Standing Rock?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was
Mhm.
there as much as I could be. And that was a special day for all us modern Indian and those young
Right.
people. There's such
Yeah.
a power in our people, and we don't need to fight anymore.
Mm.
We don't need to be the last man standing no more. We got so much like you say, innate power ourselves. We don't have to worry about whose political leadership is running. Like, it doesn't matter, really. It's the best man who can do the person or the woman. The women's are the leaders in my community, the clan mothers. I mean, they're not, the band council is made up of men and women, but it doesn't necessarily get along with the traditionals. There's different things, and it's become more divisionary than in the future. It's going to be fine, but we just got to be cool with everybody, right? That's my story. I tell all my
I
grandparents, yeah, my grandmother was special too.
Oh.
Her father lived on the best hill for tobogganing going down to our Grand River, which we're called Six Nations along the Grand River. Why? Because after fighting for the war, they gave us 6 miles each side of the Grand River from the mouth to the source. That river is 174 miles long. 6 miles each side gives us millions of acres. I got the radio station. I won the station that covered that radio, that whole region, so that we could socialize them to our people and their history, a 200
Mhm.
year old history that they really don't even know. And so we're working to get some of that land back, and we got to cut hydro poles down and shut the traffic down, shut the trains down. But I'll never forget, there was 400 of us men, and we got a community of about 21,000, probably 35,000 in the region with all the Bill C-31 come back, and I can explain what that was about. But I'll never forget all the racists were there calling us down because we shut down the main highway. We shut down the train. We shut down every entrance to our community that was within the Canadian context of Ontario. And we only
Mm,
got 23,000 square mile or square acres. It's not a lot of land. That's one little drop of Navajo land, right? You guys got that. But it's good. We've overgrazed it and there's other issues, blah, blah, blah. 591 abandoned uranium mines. I'm working on that. I want to do a show because I got to be friends with the guy who ran in Los Alamos. Like he's one of my best buddies. He's 81 years old. I go to him and his friends when they gather on the 4th of July, and I ask these guys, how do you build a hydrogen bomb? And he does this like, well, you do this and this and that's what explodes that. And that's, like, okay, so I want to ask now, after I gotten to know them for a while, how come we got 591 abandoned uranium mines in Navajo Nation? And how do we fix that? And of course, I know why, because it was close to Los Alamos.
mhm.
And obviously, where they put the Indians and reservations, when they put us in the most desolate places, but that's where all the minerals are for the day
Yeah.
grid and modern. And we know, but now we're interested like, okay, there's a high incidence of cancer among our children because the trailings from open pit mine. But you know what heals that? Is hemp. You know what hemp is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the male is the hemp. The female is the flower, of course. So that's the flower is where you get the buzz from, you know, and the hemp is industrial. We can build car bodies out of hemp. The Ford, the first car was built from hemp. Hemp is a 5,000-year-old plant. It's the best. I'm talking too much. You want to ask? I got a good question for you.
I do want to say thank you for sharing a little bit about your people. They make me think about my grandparents. They're like the last of their kind and hardworking, right? Very humble. They remind us to be humble. I melted when you said that your mom really showed you compassion. Our relatives back then didn't say, this is what it is. They walked it, they modeled it. And for for your family to be entrepreneurs too, they are just so different and being very culturally grounded. I know that you had said that you're working on your language. What sparked you wanting to relearn your culture and language, and how has that really shaped you today?
Well, because of that Jade Treaty, Indians on both sides, Haudenosaunee, all along that border, all the way up to Akwesasne, which is the St. Lawrence River. And we would be all the way along the St. Lawrence on both sides, but there's other tribes up there, of course. But every year, on July, third weekend of July, we parade bags, floats, everyone's in
Hmm.
what area. We go from Canada one year and we have a little doings there to start us. We start the parade and we parade across the border to celebrate our Jade Treaty rights, which allows us to live, retire, bring seed. We got stopped one time from bringing corn seed, Tuscarora's corn. Of course, they're originally in North Carolina and they were warred on by Washington for 10, 12 years.
Hmm.
And that route they designed or created, that path that they brought to come to the north to join our nations and we were 5 nations to start for 12,000 years. 1712, the Tuscaroras came to us and became the sixth nation. That's why I'm in the Six Nations Reserve. It's the only community where all the people live, like all six tribes are allowed to live there. Now, the Senecas are the Western doorkeepers, so they're all along Salamanca, New York, Erie, Pennsylvania, right up until Cattaraugus, the Buffalo, New York. That was the Oneida community there. And they moved out for religious, they say religious, but I think when they follow the Catholics and have the religion, the monks and all them,
Mm-hmm.
what they followed was they made cheese. They made great. We still have a bread and cheese day. It's another thing. And they made the best bread. And so that's why I think they followed him
Mm.
was for the bread and the cheese. Yeah. And that's our still a holiday from us because the queen, who was, the British, gave us bread and cheese like 150 years ago or something. Still have bread and cheese day. But it's a big chunky yellow cheese and it's a white bread. Usually, I wish they make it a grain, like a real holistic grain. But all the band counselors get it at the arena, thousands, literally, wow, 1,000 people usually come to that celebration and we line up and get our hunk of bread and our hunk of cheese and we hang out and there's bands at night and there's horse races and there's kids races and it's just a beautiful day.
Yeah.
What they come to, but we're celebrating like what Queen Elizabeth gave. So that's fine, but we can't let go of that. All the traditionals, that's one day everybody forgets about where the lines are, tradition
Mhm.
and influence of Christianity, etc. But I probably drifted again. I think I answered your question pretty good.
So was it because of that that made you curious about wanting to relearn your language or
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I heard my language as a kid. I
yeah?
heard several languages as a kid. So yeah, I know quite a bit. But to oratate my opening speech for 45 minutes, I can do the short one, 12, 15 minutes. But I have to get back to it, right? I've been doing everybody else's work. I've been all over the world practically. I was in Spain for damn near, excuse me, 2 months, making beautiful.
Where? Where in Spain?
Let's go. I got to go to IMDb. I was centralized in Madrid,
Mm.
and I took my best friend, Linda Hart, who's the love of my life. I mean, she helps me with everything. Like if it wasn't for Linda, I wouldn't be here today, to tell you the truth. I mean, she got me through an illness that is
Mhm.
profound and finally wore out. You get caregiver breakdown, right? It happens to all of us. If you ever have to care for your grandparents and they can no longer do this, you're out in the middle of nowhere, like, that's not nowhere, but out on the tourist. And you got to get all the wood is for the winter and you got to go chop it. And I'm going to do a short film with our brother who chops wood for all the elders there. He's an actor. I can't think of his name right now.
Lauren Anthony?
Yeah, we're going to do like a wood chopping thing, and I'm going to be helping
Beautiful.
too at my age, helping the Dene elders, and I'm Ungahoe, right? So, and there's a relationship too, because Dene, Northwest Territories,
Mhm.
DNE, and they're like never supposed to meet, but I mean, that's an old story, right? Like never would they meet, but they can actually communicate. Their language is I think it's the root language is, I can never think of some of the things I want to say anymore. I'm just old, right? Anyway,
Well, I think Lauren Anthony's an amazing human being,
we
and
did a short film together. We asked him about the short film. We should show that at home.
I know that he is still working hard, and
I know
especially
I'm going to come
now.
and help him this year if I can. And we're going to make a short movie about maybe I'm just the driver, right? And I crack jokes while those guys are loading. And I'm the guy that drives the boat to the
Mhm.
houses, right? And then they unload it, and I make jokes and have too much fun, right? While they're all working there. And then I
So,
eat all the chicken salad sandwiches, and I try and save a little bit for them guys. But
yeah, let me see if you recognize this. Hold on.
okay, I can't see it. But oh, you're gonna put something. Oh, I see. You can do that. Nice. Probably one of my favorites. Let me see. Oh, when I'm butt naked, probably something like that. Now I wouldn't mind being butt naked. I'll show you. I'm so skinny now. You're a skinny butt now. It's got wrong crunchy butter. But I'm proud to be
Uh,
naked. I have been. People
so
being
you know
body
that
proud.
song. Well,
Like,
good thing
how
you have
many
the
Indians have
blurry.
been naked on the screen?
Never, nobody.
Never.
You're the
How many
first.
Indians you see naked in public on, like for theater? Never. You grew up on a goofy Gary, right?
You
You
see him
doing anything
blushing.
you want to see. I don't care. It's a body part. We were born naked, so I never understood all of it. But they laughed, right? People laughed. Lovely. But they won't say anything, like there's something wrong with that guy. What's wrong with that guy?
Oh, well, you know that I played one of your songs, Take It Down. I love your music. What are you guys
Oh,
doing
yeah,
now? Are you guys
well,
getting ready
have
to
you heard
play
the new
again?
stuff? You haven't heard the new stuff.
I
Well,
haven't.
Gary Farm and the Troublemakers, it's called Lucky Seven.
Uh-huh.
That's the name of the album. And it's because I've done 7 albums. And this now, Lucky Seven, of course, is lucky in a craps game, which I grew up playing in the street where the dice came. And my
Mhm.
next one is called Eight Skate Rotate, which was like, okay, eight skates. So you threw an eight and you got to get an eight to win. So if it's 4 and 4, that's the hardest one to get. So you go eight, skate, rotate, and you throw the dice. And if an eight comes up here, yeah, shit, yeah, that's mine. I win. Give me all that. And we played on the street. So there's all these bets, and you got odds on those bets. So it's very confusing unless it's numerology, that dice game. And how many people that own casinos know their own games?
Uh,
I consider myself an expert poker player. And when I need money, where do I go? I take $100 to the casino. I play the smallest game, which is 1-3, no limit. And if I win $100 in an hour, but I got to catch the train to go home. But if I win $1,000, there's my 2 weeks. I only need to make 100 a day to support and feed my family. So I became I'm fascinated with gambling. I grew up with gambling. My family were gamblers, and it's not, I don't advise anyone to gamble. You got to know what you're doing in order to gamble. And I have a craps class that I'm offering, a workshop. It's $45. I accept 12 people.
are you serious?
I always joke about that, but
Like, I knew it.
I talked to Jack. Okay, bring $20. We'll get some change. We're going to play street game at craps. And it teaches them to get lost in a script. And all the script is the numerology of the game. There's no script really, but it's all improvised. And it teaches them that you don't need to, as long as you aren't, now any director would say you're not scary, but as long as you know the intention of the line is, I love you. But that's not necessarily what you say. You go around and say, I knew your mama when she had you born when I was about 4 or 5, but I was still close to you. And I'm just so proud to see you now grown up. And I know I'm just a little older than you, but anyways, I was thinking that you want to go for a burger or something. So did I say anything about love you? No. It's the
Yeah.
intention. What
Yeah.
is the intention of the writer? To love. Love is an active verb. So you always want the active verbs to run, to play, to negotiate, to change. And so that's all the actor needs to understand. And it's a process. It's not easy. And you don't want to go to the dark places. Like you got to go up on stage or theater and be in a crazy movie that takes you to the darkness. And unless you know how to come out from the darkness, that's why I think the theater, it's a sacred thing, just like a ceremony is sacred. You don't go to a ceremony kind of like not knowing why you're going, right? And I haven't always been treated like that. I say it, but I have to grow into it my own self. I have to learn to not smoke everybody's joint when it comes around because that's a mind changer, right? As good as
Yeah.
it can be for dealing with the stress of the world and the oppression we face as Native people. Yeah. Yeah. Why not? Yeah. Just that alone takes that away from you. So you move on with your journey and not deal with whatever is going on the other side that's hurting you and your family. So you don't go to these dark places. And let's say as an actor,
Mhm.
you gotta, it's a really heartfelt thing. So you gotta dig in there and you gotta know how to first rip your heart out of your chest, literally, and put it out in front of everyone and they laugh or they cry and then makes them feel better. But then they laugh at you for the wrong reasons. Don't matter. But then you got to be able to, by the end, when you're all done, put that heart back in place and then heal that so that can go watch the kids and cook them dinner. And you're working, when you get close to the opening, you're working 12 hours a day for the technical, and it's really hard. But I love those parts when it all starts to come together as the actor, the technical and the storyline start to cross. And so you see certain lights. And so it's the most interesting time. But that whole part of doing, like, think of the people who died overdosing after they did the darkest part. That one guy who did that Joker, he didn't know how to come back, and you got to know how to come back. It's really a spiritual thing to do the theater, and you have to have that knowledge besides learning the lines and all the blocking and what blocking means and how you find that. It's the most beautiful thing, that movement of live performance. And that's basically what our ceremonial life is. It's a performance live, like the ones we do at fair time. It always happens at night. I forget that ceremony, but I was in Tuba City for 3 months making Dark Winds, which is a fun movie. If you've never seen it, it's worth a look at. That was the original Dark, not the
Mhm.
series. It was Dark
Yeah.
Wind. It was the
Mhm.
original Hillerman book, but it's one of the few that crossed that line into Hopi territory.
What are you reading these days?
Um, I'm reading a lot of an author.
What are you reading these days?
I'm reading a lot of an author that lived on the border between Mexico and America. I can't think of his book. I'm reading all the latest novels written by Indigenous people. I can't figure all their names because they're brand new. Well, the fellow from San Francisco, that guy, of course. Sometimes I can grab a book and I read 20 pages or the back in the middle, and I switch around and I can almost touch a book and take the information from it that I need. Like I read books aloud. I just read a book aloud called Tony Medina was all set in the South, like in Louisiana, and all those tribes down there we know nothing about much, right? Because I'm Northwest, you guys are Southwest.
Mhm.
I'm Northeast, so I want to get more over there. And that whole relationship between Black and Indians,
Yeah.
that was this. That's why Tuscaroras, when they came up, they brought a darker blood. The Italians, they came and they got prejudiced. You know why? Because North Africa, they had a lot of impact from North Africa. That's why Italians are kind of dark and hairy a bit, but they're hairy on their own. They got hairy. Because I grew up with them guys, right? And
Yeah.
they don't have any more hair like that. But anyway, send a list to you, and then I'm just trying to get them back because they're all down in New Mexico, and I came up quick to back home because I needed to make myself right again so I can go back out and keep entertaining y'all till I move on to the next planet.
You're now in the winter season of your life. What are you still learning about yourself, Gary?
Oh heck, man. We spend a whole lifetime learning about ourselves, and it's not till we get to this age that we actually realize that, boy, that was a big mistake. Oh yeah, I really messed up there, but I can say thank you. I know I did you wrong back in those days, and now I'm realizing I really, not that I'm looking for you to say, well, I forgive you, but I just want them to know thank you.
Mhm.
Be good. Go. When we finish our meal, we don't say a prayer before the meal. We say after we finish eating, our last be one of the 200 varieties in the unit. We're getting up from the table, and we just say, now to not to anyone, just to ourselves to thank for that meal. So you start to put all that together in your final. I'm trying to go 10 more years of performance from 71 to 81. That's all I'm counting on. 5 and 5 is 10. And then I'm going to, like, I probably should retire, but if they still keep hiring me like Graham, See, Graham and I are cousins, Graham Green. First,
I read that.
and we used to play together as kids. Now, I was the only grandchild for 8 years, so I used to go, so,
Get all this stuff.
like a cardboard tanks. Graham did, he had like 8 children in his family. He didn't get nothing, right? So he used to come over, and his father and my grandmother were my grandmother on my dad's side, Elsie, who had the 100, no, she had Grandpa Green, who was a special story. Up by the river, I was telling you, he lived on the big hill, and we used to best toboggan. That grandfather, but that grandmother, she was the first cousin to his dad. And they lived just right across the street. It's kind of like a neighborhood almost, Michigan, a village, we call it. And we used to come over and play with my stories because he didn't get to Italy. And then we met later on in life, and he was the best sound man for bands. Of course, I was a harmonica player since I was
Mhm.
18 or so. I used to go on stage and do, you got to play this sometime, Whammer Jammer by
Rammer Jammer.
Magic Dick, Jay Giles band. And I used to go on stage and play the Magic Dick when I was a bouncer. I was always a bouncer at the clubs in college because I was big and strong and nasty looking. I wasn't that. I'm a nice guy, right? I also bounced in the Indian bars in Toronto, world famous bar, Ray Espadana, and there was all Indians. It was pretty wild Indian bar, everything but collecting the money, right? And he collected all the money and he just paid his peanuts, right? One of the guys there was a northern native, well, Manitoulin Island, not that north, really. But he was like, if there was a fight broke out, he just loved to fight. So he'd go racing in. And so I used to try to get there first and say, boys, hey, you guys are good looking. Why are you fighting? And you better cut it out before Wesley comes over. Anyway, before Wesley comes, he's going to kick ass, right? So just settle down before coming. If he came, if Wesley came, and he would just go, boom, 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 boom. He was like a real fighter. And then finally, he actually killed someone. And he got charged with manslaughter, got 10 years in prison.
Wow.
Yeah. Out my first theater job, if you can believe this, this is some years later. Well, not my first. It was just a few years later, actually. We played the 76 Olympics with a native play. And it was in Montreal. That's how long I've been an actor, in 1976. But I started in 75. But and we played all the prisons, all the way up to Montreal from Toronto. It's a big drive. It's 6 hours, 5 hours. And so there's a lot of institutions, both medium, maximum women's prisons, and we played the maximum security prison in Melhaven Penitentiary in Kingston, Ontario. And they put us out in the yard, and our story was about how the Bay Tuck got wiped out in Newfoundland. They literally get chased down like animals there. And so we're telling that story, but it's kind of funny in the first act, and then the second act really makes you think about what. And then Thompson Highway's work was very similar, especially the big hit we had. Dry Lips Out of Multicapiscation, which won the best award in Canada and won all of us awards. You know, Graham got the main acting award because he was so funny as a bootlegger.
Mm.
He just laugh and laugh. And that play, Thompson Highway's play, One Flew, which is Will Sampson. See, I got inspired by Will. When Will threw that seat through that thing, I said, wow, that empowered me as a young person.
Mm.
Wow. You ran for freedom, and I'm running for freedom. I've been running for freedom my whole life, and I'm on the move all the time. That's why I didn't have any children. I knew I'm going to be a road man. Now it's not a road man like a Native American church, right?
Yeah.
That's special too. But you know, I'm a road man in a theatrical performance way, and that's why all the women in my life, we never had children, but they had children. So I was like saying, man, I was a king of the single mothers, right? There's a lot of deadbeat dads out there. And I helped raise those children, but I had to learn because I
Mhm.
had a violent childhood. I don't look at it that way. Dad was teaching me. He was a good teacher. He wanted my shoulders straight. He put a lacrosse stick back. I had to go like this. All of a sudden, I had the great posture. And if I had a bad report card, which to him, 98, 95, 90, 65 in Italiano and a 50 in Latin, he'd like punish me across the bed with a strap on my ass, right? And that's really violent. But to me, did I ever get, yeah, I never got 50 and 55 in Latin. It's still because it's geology. But my English teacher said, if you take Latin, you're going to be gifted here in English. So I used to get 98 in English just because I took Latin. Homo massa mont. I love, you love, we all love. And that, you see, the languages, if you go back in time, our, when I started out, that circle with the cross in the middle, every
Yeah.
nation in the world, white, red, black, yellow, we're all in there. And that's when the women realize that because we're not going to have this no more. This, well, Trump's funny, right? I never watched so much TV when Trump was president because he's such a goof joker, right? He's like, he makes you laugh. He's entertaining you. Even when we were all dying of COVID, we lost so many elders during that disease. But, and not that I was laughing at that, but I was laughing at the, like when he starts drinking shit that he shouldn't be drinking. It's like, he says, you know, if you drink bleach, you're going to be all right, and stuff like that. Like, I didn't laugh, but it was kind of entertainment. He's classic entertainment guy. And was the last time we had an entertainment guy, an actor? Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, I was gonna say
What did
Reagan.
he do? He killed public radio. He killed FM radio. He killed AM radio. He didn't want us to learn from each other. He thinks we're only going to learn from these commercial stations and we're going to make a lot of money. And anyway, yeah, I got stories galore. I talk too much.
You do have lots of stories. When you think about 10 years from now, what worries you about our people and what gives you hope about our people?
I'm not worried about our people.
Oh, I
And
love
I
that.
got nothing. I know my heart. We're better now than we've ever been. We're stronger. It's not going to change. We're just going to keep getting stronger. It's going to be bright years for Native America. Just hang on, sister and brothers. Just hang on.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Don't worry.
I love
Things
that.
happen for a reason. If we lose some, it's a learning for us. And it's a blessing.
Yeah, I love. Ah,
Look at this old boogers.
it's been the booger show for you.
Well, boy. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
You know, Allie?
No, I don't. Should I?
Yeah, well, I think you should. She's the one that gets everyone to vote. You guys really affected in, especially in Arizona, I'm talking, of course. You're at Dene in New Mexico, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. My community doesn't vote, you know, because it's not our government. We have our own government, and our government is elected by the women. And so when the band council has election, yeah, I told you there's 21,000. Like if 2,000 people vote, we're lucky as that colonization went farther west, and I'm going west. This is like the east, or the other side is east. So I'm going west. I don't know which way I'm going because I'm confused by the camera. I'm going west. And if you look at the Navajo government, it's structured just like the USA. It's got the court system,
Mhm.
and it's very structured like the US government. And why is there so much potential corruption? Because it's structured by the US government. And I don't know. I'm just saying that. I don't mean any harm. I love all the leadership. I'm trying to get to talk to the leader in Dene to really realize that marijuana is one thing, but hemp, you know what hemp does? We put the hemp seeds on the uraniated land, the uranium-based land that's causing tailings and the disease among our people. That takes the bad from the earth, puts it in the plant, and then it takes the bad from the sky, the CO2, the carbon, and it puts it in the plant, and it just eats it up like that. So you plant hemp, on all the radiated lands, and you got acres of things that need planting, and you got to bring that growing culture back. How do we bring the soil back to nutrition? We hempify it. We grow hemp, and then we can build houses with mud. I'm going to make a documentary film on hemp and its possibility. We can build batteries. We can build car
Wow.
batteries. We can build batteries to power from the sun and take those batteries out of hemp and create electricity without any lines, without any destroying this or that. We can get electricity from the sun. And I know the Dene are really into solar panels and it can
Mm.
power the DC things that bring the water from the earth. Maybe you got to go 90 feet, 100 feet to get hit water these days. But there's a lot of water there. You just can't get that deep, right? They get deep with that pipe to pull all the bad for fracking. They put chemicals down there and blow stuff up, and they're destroying our water tables. And a lot of tribal members in Oklahoma are living off of fracking. So you can't really fault them for wanting to create an economy that they don't have to go 9 to 5 and they can watch the kids and just watch that little thing go, and then create a little economy to raise their families. So, but that's all education. That's why radio is important. We got to have public radio stations, not just KTNN that plays what? Country music. And that's not necessarily all our music, but a lot of our players are country. But why can't
Yeah.
we play reggae music? Shit, it's just reggae
Yeah.
music is from the, it's heart music. Hopi, they take the radio. When they do the dances, they'll dance with the reggae music sometimes. The clowns, when the clowns come up,
Yeah.
and says, okay, you guys, you've been listening, you're forgetting about your tradition and you're listening to too much reggae music, but they'll make us laugh about it. They won't come and say, hey, no more reggae music. Well, they will stop a concert or like the Pueblos will shut down. That's so special. When something goes bad, if some kids did something bad to a holy man, a different culture, or it could be a Catholic, and he died and got run over because of their fault, doors, the doors go down. Yeah,
Yeah.
discipline. How much spiritual discipline do people have anymore? You can't
Yeah.
hold people hostage like that. And that's vital for our survival to have that kind of spiritual discipline. Respect that so much. I just,
It's true. I feel like in terms of discipline, we've gotten very lazy
we
and
wavered. But look at you guys are like the biggest tribe, like the only second. I think you're more than Cherokee. Cherokee's part of one of our language groups, but Athabascan, that's your language group, I think. And
yeah, it is. Mhm.
and you've been on the toughest land to survive, right? Just like the Hopi, but you had to move, you had to expand. You went right around them over the years, and you got chased out of here and there. And Billy the Kid, or what's that guy's name? That he married Navajo, but he moved you guys all over the place. Kid, Kid Carson, yeah, we should have fun with that guy. He was a really nice guy, but his ideas and these concepts about where you guys should be pushed here and there is not necessarily right on, but we got so much fun to have. Like James and Ernie, I worked with Ernie when we were young, man, and
Yeah.
Ernie's been my brother. And
Aw.
I tried to get him to do this film. He says, "Well, I'm doing a big cartoon, bro. I can't do that stuff right now." That was like a little bit. I said, "Well, this is a great part. I don't want to play Danae. One thing I don't like to play is Danae, only because I'm so far removed from, like, I played the world's biggest Hopi. That was fun, but I wouldn't play a Danae person. Of course, just, I'm a little, anyway, whatever. I try to
Aw.
give you parts that are both Pueblo,
Mhm.
Danae, and nobody ever asked me to play Hopi anymore, but if we had, but please do watch that film. The original
Yeah.
it's worth the look at for sure.
Well, Gary, we've talked so much about your history. We now know that you have a little bit of Scottish in you. And just hearing some of the
Explain to
stories
them.
about like the lands, the sacred lands of Niagara Falls, which I think is beautiful. And you've talked so much about resources and that Mother Earth has all the magic to heal itself, and we just got to think outside the box and be gamblers. Because you talked about gambling, but we
You
have to
gotta take a
take
gamble, yeah.
we gotta take a
I
gamble
mean,
and do that, and
I'm
I
not saying
love
gamble literally, I'm just saying we gotta gamble to make things right and
right?
did some
Yeah.
things you would have never done years ago.
Mhm. Absolutely. You talked about love and how love is this action and all the different shows and ideas that you're thinking about and your music. Just
Music's
love.
really it for me. I really
Mhm.
gonna keep. I'm so full of songs, and now I can jam on the piano. So now I'm starting to write music with the piano and just fill
Oh,
with it.
that's great.
And so yeah,
One of the things that you said that it really just made me think, and I appreciate this wisdom, is that you telling us not to worry. There's nothing to worry about, and that we're strong, resilient people. And I'm wondering one last thing that you want to tell people that they should do more of, or a call to action that you want to let our Indigenous people know. What would that be?
have some fun. You
Have some fun?
mix it up. It could be any color. They could be East Indian. They could be from Ethiopia. Have you ever had Ethiopian food? Have you ever had food from Italiano, from Scottish food, French food, cuisine, Mediterranean diet? That's what we should be on because the flour and sugar is killing us. So
Mm.
we call fry bread traditional food, but that's traditional killer food, right? That's what gives us the sickness and the diabetes, the pop. Try water. Try 1% milk. We got to change our diets. And that's all. You got to use the beans. That's protein. Use the wild game, the sheep and the goat and the go hunt the big elk. That can feed a whole family. You go to Inuit land, they hunt muskox. Have you ever eaten muskox? Caribou. Caribou is the finest meat I've ever had. Anyway, there's so much to share and to learn, and don't be afraid to outstep your little box you put yourself in. And more
Yes.
of us can't see outside the box, and sometimes I can't see out the box. So I'm not saying I'm any different than y'all. Now I'm starting to blossom a bit with the sick heal the sick.
Aw. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Jonayat. I'll go
Woohoo.
on that, Chikis. Oh, thank you so much, and I'll see you soon, my friend. Here.
We'll connect. All y'all. Adios, amigo. Hasta luego.
All right. Bye.